Did you just hear that little alert when there was a text? Did you just hear like a random bell sound? Just no, no. If you heard like a distinct, like one of those, somebody's just messaged you type sound from iMessage. Did you hear that, or is like you didn't hear that at all? It was like
I
a
did
it was very distinct.
I did not hear the iMessage
You
sound.
didn't hear it? That's great. Good. Well, that's good. That's good. That would be
Alert, and there
annoying.
was a
That's not a bug.
Where'd the chat go?
That's is the yeah, exactly. That works exactly as it's supposed to. That's not a bug. Minor correction. I wouldn't consider myself expert level. Just to be, just for the record, I consider myself still noob to intermediary level. Like I feel like I'm still on that. So I'm just saying that that might be false modesty, but I sincerely mean
Oh, I'm definitely not. I made a face that I hope was visible.
it. Yes. Let's just double check because
I
on
just
YouTube,
messaged,
the
can
last
you hear
thing that
us? Um,
is,
a
yeah,
minute.
it was enthusiastic electrons, so they can't hear heck. So let's just make sure that we get a confirmation
He
on
says he
YouTube.
hears you and I, but not Heck.
Okay, well, that's good specific information. Heck, you can figure that out.
Figured out for sure this time. All right, I should be able to.
Here's one thing. Just as a reminder, it'll be one of your monitoring options. So either it's in loopback or in something like Zoom or probably OBS, where you can monitor your own voice if you've got it threaded in through a separate audio in. So think about that as an option.
Hold on just a sec. Talking. I mean, I'm seeing it. I mean, I saw the levels going in OBS too, so it should be working. I don't. They should probably hear me now.
There's an all caps yes.
Oh, cool. We're in. All right. Intros.
Boom.
Forestine. Alex. Uh, tell us one thing about you, and then we'll talk modules.
Alex should go first.
Alex, go first.
Okay, Forestine, I will go first. Something about me. I'll keep it short. You might be wondering, yeah, this mirror image thing. You might be wondering what one of these things are that are contained in one of these bowls.
No, we can't talk about that right now. We're gonna save the orbs topic for a future episode when we've got Schmooster on.
Fair enough. And that's what you will know about me tonight. I am into those red spherical balls made of leather. And my name is Alex.
All right. What's your cat's favorite genre of music?
It did. She very much likes Heckseven.
It's because of all the squelchy, horrible sounds my modules. It might be the noise floor is so high the cat's stoked about it. I'm Heckseven. I make bad techno, and I don't know what genres I make, but I make it and I like it, so it's fun. But we're gonna talk modular. So
I think I was muted when I tried to introduce myself.
Oh yeah, you were. I thought you were just paused.
I'm Forestine, and I make music with a lot of pulse width modulation. The end.
The most pulse width modulation, yeah. You and Nick Bat. I think that's his name. Sonic State guy. Anyway. All right. What's your favorite module right this second? Mine is this attenuverter, which I haven't used for anything, but the way it lights up is just amazing. I just made it. It's great.
Oh,
It
you
goes
made
from
it.
blue
That's
to
so
red
cool.
on the same LED. Bipolar LEDs are the best.
And what do you immediately, instantly kind of like got it attenuating? Like
I don't
where
have it
have you got it
attenuating
into?
anything right now, but that's because I'm keeping this setup somewhat simple while I write some stuff for Magpie Fest. Usually, what I do when I'm writing a song is I'll like get the melody and rhythm and bass, and then I'll start really doing some sound design. So when I use it, I'll probably use it for attenuating something like the dual LPGs, which I think by default just they do the full range, so it's not hard to it's harder to hear sort of what it does. So I think by attenuating some of the signal going into there, um, it'll help significantly improve
Yeah,
the
that'd be nice.
sound.
And then have it like close to hand.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be really close, and I can quickly manipulate the signal. All right, who's next?
Go, Forestine. It's your turn,
But
first.
then we're no. I just got an Ikari and I really like it, but I don't know all of the things it can do yet.
What is it? Like, what's the high level? Like, I keep hearing the
Uh,
name.
It's a stereo filter that's super spacey sounding,
That's
and
awesome.
it
Stereo.
has a beyond output. It says beyond,
Hmm.
and it has some like really cool. You can switch it from stereo panning to the other thing that I don't remember.
Is
Stereo spread.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and the stereo spread is so cool if you like modulate it, because then they're both moving. It's cool.
I wish you hadn't said that. Those are like some of my favorite words in the same sentence. Filters and stereo. So now I'm gonna have to Google it. Alex, you're up.
Uh, Maestro
Maestro.
landed 2-3 days ago. I was, I've been like, I like acid, rain, their modules. I've got like 2 of them. They do 2 other things, and they do them really well. And so I paid attention to Maestro when they came out, and CK Sample, who's an EMSer, of course, like shoved it into his rack. I think like a couple of weeks ago, and I was paying attention to what he was doing with it, and like, fuck yeah, I'll let me try that. So like it landed 3 days ago, and right now it's like it's a lot of fun just to like punch it into different parts of the patch and see what the fuck it does. It's fun. It's nice.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, we've talked modular. Now let's talk live stream collaboration. Like I was working when I saw you all talking about, is it Sonubus, something like that.
Monobus.
Some collaboration software. It's a way to from what I understand, it's a way to collaborate across distances over the internet in near real time. So you can theoretically play together with your instruments without necessarily hearing too much sound lag, or at least not a noticeable amount. And you all tried it out, which it sounded great. Like I just jammed on that for like the last 45 minutes. It was cool. What did you think about it? Like, how hard was the setup?
So first thing, when you go for it, because you told me about it, so I think the right place
Yeah.
to start is like, how did you get to know about it?
A couple people in New York Modular Society were posting about it, and they're going to be doing a show tomorrow. And basically, it is an app that takes your audio and sends it to the other person, and there's like some kind of wizardry in there to like match up where it is. And in theory, you could send a clock. I don't know how. And there's a metronome thing, but I think there would be way too much lag. But yeah, I tried it with my friend Hassan on the weekend, and it was like amazing. and it felt like the closest thing to actually hanging out in person that I have experienced during COVID. And so I was like, oh shit, I want to like do this with everybody I know. And so a while ago, Robbie had posted that, hey everybody, you should listen to Alex's stream and Forestine's stream at the same time because they sound really cool. So I was like, oh well, Alex is obviously the first person I'm going to ask then. And so yeah, we tried it yesterday, and we were just going to do like a test run, but then we were like, actually we should probably stream this. And so we kind of Alex scrambled to set up like OBS and stuff, which was a little bit janky but totally worked. And like a couple times it got really, really choppy, and then we waited it out and it kind of stabilized. But I did notice some lag, like especially near the end, but it wasn't that bad.
That's rad. Like where did you start? Like did you agree on a key, or did you just pick a note and go from there? Like how did you decide where to start musically?
So I tried this with Hassan, and so I decided to do that with this one, where I set up a drone and I just said the drone is E, and then we took turns adding things, and then partway through, this was before we had started streaming, Alex was like, hey wait, what tempo are you actually at anyway? And so I set mine to a division of his, but yeah, otherwise then it was just like kind of live responding to what the other person was doing.
That's interesting. So because of the nature of the more ambient, evolving sort of drone-like sounds, you didn't have to worry too much about clock or tempo and stuff early on. It sounds like clock sync would be pretty handy, and could be fun. I'd be curious to see what something like if I was at 120 BPM and I had the master clock, if I cranked that up to 160, like what that might sound like to Alex, if his gear would pick it up fast enough where you don't really notice a change, or if everything would get confused. But it's all I want to do is create software.
I think once you start clocking it, it won't feel as seamless.
Yeah, especially I think like punchier notes, like stabs.
The one thing that we did both times is I was like, well, I do a lot of drones and sounds anyway, and so I'll just have the other person can do the things that usually are clocked, like percussion or things like that, and then I'll do stuff where it doesn't matter if it's clocked or not. And then when I did something rhythmic, I would add a whole bunch of slop to it so that it didn't matter. And so
cool.
That's what I'm going to do with Robbie on Friday. And then I'm doing one with Ethan James on Monday, and both of us don't care about clocks, so it's going to be the we don't need no stinking clocks stream.
No, just go for it. Yeah.
Nice.
Alex, I think we should try like a 160 plus BPM, like as what's that musical is it staccato or something like that, where everything is particularly stabby, so like we'll see if things line up correctly, right, or if it sounds, I don't know.
No, it'll be interesting. Definitely a really interesting dimension to push on with this kind of platform. And what I would say is, so I'm definitely excited about that. Like can we get synced up clocks to the level and to the point where you're hearing a drum, I'm hearing a snare, and we're just like, we're hearing it as the output hears it. So this is what I was going to say, is that the interesting thing about just the way that it's designed is, or the way that I happen to learn to use it, which I think is by design, by the designers, which is my audio input came through the output of Sonobus.
Right.
Like, so it's, I'm not hearing like my local audio in, and it's like I'm hearing the merged between Forestine, myself,
right,
as the output goes.
Right.
So which is great actually, because when you think about like what it's like to like perform with somebody, like you got to find, like you're reacting to each other and responding to each other, and then you're like finding a place where it's like, oh yeah, we just found our groove, like we just
Right.
met, right? It's like,
Right.
because the clock was definitely not there to start off with. We weren't even synced. Actually, interestingly, like almost by like a couple of beats per
That we
minute,
were really
half.
close to synced already. Like, yeah, it was like.
But that was by accident. Like that was not an agreed thing. And so then we just like, but what I was going to say is like, it's hearing the output of the combined performances that you realize like you have to be gentle with your movements on your side, just because you have to like kind of calibrate the ear to like, even if it's not perfectly in sync, is it currently in sync that it'll work over the next few beats, just given
Right.
natural sub rhythms that you might tune into.
Right, and like I've been messing with, I just did a bunch of messing with samples, and some of the fun things about samples is they don't necessarily have to be right on the beat robotic. Like there's some give to that, like there's a lot of flexibility to that, or if you're into like unquantized beat making, like you get stuff just slightly off a little bit all the time. So I think that's totally fine and natural, just like as long as you're sort of on the same page with the other
My
person.
sense is this, that the moment we start getting into clocked, deliberately like highly synchronized grids, virtually through like just like a clock out synced, that's the magic sauce, right? So like I think they've nailed, like the designer of this software, the designers of this software have figured out how to make it dead easy to have a combined audio shared session with a high level of connectivity, and then a whole bunch of dials like to tune in latency.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and here's, I think the thing is like, if you can figure out, like, so for example, you're in Colorado, you're in,
Winnipeg.
yeah, somewhere east. Is that East Canada?
It's in the middle exactly.
It's right.
Yeah,
like dead
I mean,
center.
it's still a far ass way from like California here, right? So that's got distance to travel, and so like if it's able to figure it out, at least in the space of North America, just give the dials to you just enough to be able to tune it in and make it work. That's a big deal.
See, I'm not even as interested. Like, I have a lot of things I want to try with this. I think it's pretty cool. Like, I want there to be some sort of MIDI controller, like designated controller. Like let's say Alex is the one controlling, I don't know, MIDI channel 5. That he's controlling the chords, so that impacts everything I have on channel 5 going ARPs or whatever. And so he can do that while I get to play with sound design, or like we can flip it and do that. Like that's sort of stuff I'm excited about. But also like super drones. Like how many people can do this at once? Like can we have like 1,000 oscillator drone just because we have enough people in chat? Like let's why not?
That's a fun idea. That's a fun idea. By
like
the way.
Everyone turn your volume down to like 10%, which is super low.
Just
but
like we'll tune in for like a super oscillator session. Who's this like? What's this?
I mean, I would like. It's like you can do it as over the course of the day, right? Like you can come in and be like, "Well, I'm gonna make this a higher pitched E. I'm gonna go get a beer." Like it's a drone. You don't have to do things quickly.
That could be a fun hold session.
Yeah.
That would be really fun.
Example, like anybody can tune in to the oscillator to the super drone, and then when somebody comes along and then wants to actually perform, then cuts to the live performance, and then it like flips back to the never-ending cumulative drone by all EMSs that happen to dedicate an entire oscillator in real time 24 hours a day.
I only have 2 right now. And then like after we jammed, I was like, why was I the one that made the drone? Like it should have been Alex.
Like so you've got extra stuff.
I made the drone and then I only had one oscillator.
Oh, well,
It was cool though. No, it was like really fun. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed the experience. It's just fun to like. It just adds completely different dimension, which is very cool. As simple as that. I loved it.
yeah, one of my favorite things, we don't do it that often, is when my partner comes down and like reluctantly plays with the synthesizers and stuff, even just like riffs that are out of time. I don't even care. Like, it's super fun to play with other people. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. It's like if they're having fun on a riff or playing the keyboard or whatever, and you're making the sound go crazy over on the the sound design controls. It's just
Why
a
do
lot
you
of
think?
fun.
Totally. So why is it surprising to you that there's a high proportion of musicians, amateur or professional or otherwise, that love cats? Cat like cats are the ultimate like version of random input. Like if they figure out how to like just mess with your life, and it could be anything from like reaching over to the keyboard and just like turning over the filter cutoff. So what are you doing? To distracting you at an important moment.
Yes. I mean, I cannot have cats for allergy reasons, or I choose not to, rather. I probably could and, do all the hypoallergenic stuff. But behind this, like, bottom shelf where the speakers are, it's actually hollow on the, and on the backside it's open. And that's where I have, like, a power strip where all of, like, the power supplies connected to these are. And it gets warm. So I am 100% positive if there was a cat, that cat would be in there right now. I would be if I was a cat. All right.
I just saw in chat, Tim asked what sort of lag was there on the Sonobus. I felt like it got worse over time. Excuse me. And the lag was between my input and me hearing what I did.
All right.
So...
Oh, interesting. So it's sort of like right now my video is lagging just a fraction of a second. It's sort of like that with audio, where you push a button or turn the volume up or whatever the thing is, and then you hear it a half a second or a second later.
Yeah, like I didn't start noticing it until I was playing keys and I was trying to add some pads, and I'm like, where's the pad? And then it appeared.
That stuff really throws me off when there's delay like that.
But it seemed like I just tried to keep like stuff that wasn't timed, and then it didn't matter when it came in. Like, it'll get there.
Well, that's
but I mean, it's like, sorry, I was just going to say though, I think there was a pretty deliberate decision that we wouldn't. Forestine, this is how I remember it, right? But like, correct me if my memory's not accurate here. But like, I thought, like, I felt that like we went in saying, we're just gonna go for it. We're not like using clocks as an essential item of what we're doing, or we're just gonna roll with it. So it's like, is that fair to say?
Yeah, like I figure like if the other person is doing stuff that's in time, then my stuff can go in and out of it. So.
Right. No.
I mean, I think you're onto something. Like, this has me going. Like, my gears are spinning. Like, I feel like you can send MIDI data, or I don't know if you can do it with this software, but maybe some parallel software. But
you can do it, just not with this. Yeah.
Right.
It's totally a thing I've seen before.
Right. So like, we could all get some ARPs going, because ARPs really play nicely. I think where you run into issues are sort of like if you've got like a drop, like if Alex does a drop or something and no one else does, or they're like a second behind, that gets weird real fast.
Yeah, that you wouldn't be able to line up something like that. I don't think.
I mean, you can, like, the human ear is good at like picking up a little bit of wobble and the ability to adjust it. And so one of the ways that I've been thinking about the approach to what does success look like on this platform in a collaboration thing in a highly synced way, which, and I think my answer is, well, it's not going to be perfect, but nor were like the early days of vinyl and analog mixing on a DJ set. They didn't have perfectly synced clocks. They went by ear and they adjusted, and like and you can hear the wobble from time to time, but it's like it's actually part of the live sound. And then they find each other, and then things wobble again, and then they find each other. So I think it's like if you think about it as like I'm in a club listening to somebody using old school vinyl mixes. Um, that's a reasonable amount of sync imperfection, I think.
I agree with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up your video real quick so that at least can be playing while we're talking lightly in the background. I'm going to just start midway in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something also that EMS Schmooster just discussing on the chat, which is just the idea of like, hey, how about we just stick to a BPM? Like, so like we did do that, Forestine. I think I think what we said is that we synced up. You were at 60 and I was at like
120.
120, some, yeah, whatever. And we said like, well, let's just like at least get there, and then we don't make it like a big deal, but like we can start there, and that helps. So back to the conversation that I'm seeing out on YouTube. It's just a sensible idea for, just agree to that, because it's going to be, hey, that's the simplest thing you could possibly sing, is at least attempt to get to a BPM that is divisions of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I think another one of the cool things about it that I'm excited about is it sort of, it's similar to the goal of this, where it's just like, it's a way to hang out with some folks, have a little fun, without
But that's what
being in person.
What's interesting about the journey that I think I've been on over the last few months, the rest of it is like, so like the opportunity to enter an age where we're not only just getting comfortable like playing music in front of each other and being supported by each other and varying different levels of audiences. So it could be just an audience of one, which is yourself, or like, all of a sudden there's 5 or 6 people that happen to be hanging out or whatever, that's a really cool experience. And so then to be able to add this other little thing, which is like, how about making music with somebody else in the same tent, like on the same environment, let's say, but just in a different way, is a really interesting opportunity, I think.
I agree.
And exciting, man.
Yeah, for sure. It just makes me want to go do it. Like I'm like, all right, I'm done talking about it. Let's go share some streams together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like if we can do that, and amongst as a community at least, like share the knowledge, like what's working, what isn't for you as you try things, like document your setup. If you've got just like a couple of minutes and you've got it working and the rest of it, just like throw up a quick post, like a mini tutorial that gets, like pinned onto these different channels for these different things. And like, I think like, synced up.
I was just about to complain about the documentation across these modular communities. Like some folks are doing a really good job. Like I think New York Modular Society has some really nice blog posts out, whereas most of the folks in the communities I'm in, like it's like 20 pinned posts in each channel, and like good luck, like
I feel attacked.
Yeah. It's not you, it's my dysfunction with being able to play nicely with that. Like my instinct, like I like chaos, but I also like organizing chaos a lot. So like my instinct is like, I'm just gonna make a wiki for all of Modular, and it's gonna be the ultimate wiki. But like 20 people have probably done that before. I don't know. Anyway, way off topic. Should we move on to oblique strategies?
Let's go.
All right. Next topic is oblique strategies, which if you've not heard of, let me pull up.
Oh, this is the dog's barking patch that came with the Juno.
The dog's Uh, I'm just getting the site up, and I'll share the screen because there is actually a Brian Eno site that has basically these oblique strategies. So let's switch to Firefox. All right, so oblique strategies are sort of like an interesting way of thinking about problems. Like they're a set of cards that Brian Eno made, and in this case, it's a website that every time you refresh gives you sort of a different cue that may help you think, might help you break your train of thought or think about a problem a different way. And it's designed for more than just music and other things. But what brought this up recently is, to me at least, is actually Alex had this modular card deck that I forget the name of, but it's basically an oblique strategies card deck for modular synthesizers.
Patch.
Yes. Is it patch strategies or something like that? Or is it just called patch?
I think it's called the patch game.
Okay. And Forestine, you've made your own oblique strategies cards. Did you manage to find and dig those out?
I have found them. I had these fancy index cards, and so I cut them all in half, and then I wrote them in fountain pen, which is a previous hobby I got too into.
Fountain pen, calligraphy. You're speaking my language right now. This is something I
can you
hundreds of hours.
Can we get a close up of Forestine? Like, can we make?
Oh yeah. Let's.
Forestine the focus. I'm just really interested in like that calligraphy there.
I have my baby head full of fountain pens also.
All right, can you share that card again? Because we want to actually see
the first one. I want to see the
oh, my
calligraphy.
It's not really calligraphy. It's just a fancy pen.
Fountain pen. It's calligraphy, even if it's not fully trained.
It's backwards though.
But it looks good. Well, it's backwards to you.
That's really fancy.
It's good for us.
That's very fancy.
Very nice.
The ink is called Moonlight of Higashiyama.
Ooh. Very cool. And Alex, do you have your cards handy or no? They're probably
cool pen
with your synthesizer, I'd imagine. Oh wow.
Yeah, they're in a different part of town right now.
Oh,
I'm not near my studio.
Hey, no worries. Anyway, there are these patch cards I got really excited about. Like, I started writing down my own oblique strategies, and I even started writing a quick web app for it. I'll probably finish that after I get actual work done.
Oh, that's a neat idea. That's a really neat idea.
Right, like just spin up a quick web app, focus it around, modular or whatever geeky things we're into.
Make it super iPhone or Android or mobile friendly, and you've got a winner right there.
That's my thing, though. That's my jam. That's easy peasy.
So, do that.
Yeah, so that's something I'm excited about.
That's a cool idea.
If anyone has cool, like an oblique strategy type thing, like, let's see, where's my
dude, seriously, that's a sweet idea. And you can go like open source.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would just put it on GitHub.
And then figure out a way for the designer. I can't remember his name. Is like Jim Sigmund or something like that. And figure out a way. Is like, would it be interested in playing part of what that could be? Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily a competitor even to the commercial market, even though, because that's a business idea for them. And so, like, I'm going, yeah, how could you collaborate or work with that company? They might be interested in some really interested community-driven extensions of their idea.
Yeah, honestly, if they just forked my code, took it wholesale, and sent me $20, I'd be cool with that, because I think that's about as much effort as I'm gonna put into it.
Message received.
Yeah, those are great. Those are I have to embiggen.
Hold on, destroy
Forestine.
nothing. The most important thing. Okay, so wait. Hold on. Stick with that card. That last one. No. Hold on a second, Forestine. Let's just go back to that.
We're trying to bring it. We're bringing it home to synthesizers.
Look. Here's. Can you just? this is a really interesting thing. So I'm reading this as the action is destroy, and then you've got two things to destroy. The first thing is nothing, and then the second thing is the most important thing. Now, am I reading that right?
It's I think it's open to interpretation, right? It's oblique
exactly.
strategy. So like I would read that if I'm thinking about synthesizers, destroy nothing. So I would take nothing as silent. So I'd make a lot of noise, and then I'd also destroy the most important thing, which is usually the lead or melody. Sometimes the bass line for me. Just destroy nothing for as long as possible. Yeah, 6-hour drone. Let's go. Yeah, those are awesome.
Don't be afraid of things because they're easy to do.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things in this music class that I've noticed is a lot of folks are really advanced in terms of making melodies and things, but they're also like the folks that are more advanced in terms of having played piano or instruments before are struggling to come up with melodies. When I realized a few months ago that like most bass lines and melodies are just like one or two notes over and over again. But that's like pop music.
Yeah, but like, what are you saying then? What does that mean then for you?
Well, I think if you want to make something, I think the trick with a melody or a hook is it has to be simple enough to remember, right? Like, you have to hear it once, and then your brain has to be like, okay, this is going to happen more than once. So one or two notes, sometimes 3 or 4 for little accents and things is perfect. Once you start getting into like a full scale, like that works really well for a solo, but if you use it as your main melody or bass line or something where you're going up and down quite a ways and putting in a lot of notes, it ends up sounding almost like I'm trying to think of like children's.
Tchaikovsky on his best seventh night.
No, those are pretty nice, but I would say the Tchaikovsky and some of those other musicians that have these amazing sounds, like they're almost doing like solos when you hear that kind of stuff. Like they're basically doing guitar solos on a whatever the instrument is that they're playing at the time, but like you can't. Those aren't the main riffs. Like Beethoven, his main riffs are pretty simple. Bach, their main riffs are pretty simple, and they keep coming back to them. If they're complex, they don't get picked up. I don't know. It's just something I noticed recently. Basically, I stopped caring about things being complicated and just went for the dumb stuff.
Well, I think going back to oblique strategies, just for a moment, is that it's just like it's a really interesting technique to experiment and get into different zones that you're not familiar with, and try something new, or just have that open-minded of not being scared for trying something. You're not going to get judged for it. This is, whatever you happen to output is the output, and that's the journey you committed to. So that's the best you know.
I think they're really useful as well for getting past the blank canvas stuff. Like if you're stuck, reading a few oblique strategy cards or something like that can help you at least start doing something. It may not be what you want or imagine that you want to do.
I mean, like, you're going to that next level. It's not just like getting, you're in the physical art form of actually writing the cards, and even the distribution and the way that the instruction is consumed, or how it should be even interpreted in its most immediate senses. It's like you're like bleeding edge of the oblique strategies thing. Like you're just like fucking with minds at this point, even by the way that you happen to write the words. You're subliminally introducing oblique strategies.
Well, I did accidentally make 2 of do nothing for as long as possible, so.
That's poetic.
That's good.
All right. I think the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if anybody else does, but like my brain has been exploded by Korg over the last few weeks. Like I don't know if you noticed, but I have some Korg stuff, and I really like my Korg stuff. But their demos are awful. So like they just announced a couple of things. The ModWave, which is a wavetable synthesizer that's got like full-size keys. It's pretty hefty. And it does all the cool stuff you would expect a wavetable synthesizer to do. And they also teased out the drum log, I think is what they called it, which is sort of a terrible name. But it also looks pretty massive as far as their mock-ups go. It's definitely still in progress. It sounds like it may have something to do with samples, DS something, DSPs maybe, and I think some analog stuff in there as well, so you can get a range of drum sounds. And because it's got that log on the end of it, I suspect it's going to be $600 to $800, somewhere in that range. But their demos are awful. Like they're the worst demos I've seen on the internet. Like if you look at Arturia, when they release something new, even if it's like an update, there's 20 YouTubers with sick demos the second they announce it. Like it's game on. Yeah. If you like heavy metal, you can find a YouTuber who does that has that Arturia thing. Listen to that, how they use it. If you like more ambient, there's somebody who does that. If you like reading manuals or want to know all the technical details, there's somebody who does that. Like Lupop will give you the lowdown on every single feature. Day one, that's what you get. With Korg, you get like, with this drum log, you have like almost like a CR 60 something, like that really old Korg drum machine sound. Like they had that like almost playing in the background, like really light, bad. There's no good snares, there's no good kicks. There's nothing exciting about the video other than the image. But I'm still stoked about it because I love the Mini Log XD. I think they make really good products, so I have faith that it will sound good. But come on.
So you think it was just a bad demo?
It's
like
a terrible
the actual
demo.
Was bad?
Yeah, I think their demos are just really bad. Like I also watched the ModWave demo. Like they actually had somebody on there on like a live stream for, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes or something talking about it. And it was not good. They weren't going through good sounds or like showing you like some cool stuff that gets you fired up about it. It was more like it has this knob and this feature and like
yeah, you should start with like something that shows how good it can sound before you go into like the individual beat boops.
Yeah, get me fired up. Like let's get everyone that's watching stoked about it before you talk about the envelope, right? Like that seems like a no-brainer. I mean, we love envelopes. There's never enough ADSRs, but you know what I'm saying. And beyond that, they've got the wave state, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the SQ1 and the Volca keys are I've actually been eyeing the Volca keys on Reverb recently for no reason. I don't need it.
I have one. I never use it.
Yeah. I just like the sound of it, Yeah, Red Mean's recording reviews are great.
His are the best.
I'd say Red Mean's
it'll just be like an hour of a module just in different jams.
Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah. I don't care. Like, give me 10 minutes of it sounds. Like, make a jam, a song, play a few things, then tell me about the details, and then do another jam. Red Mean's recording does it perfectly with modules. In my opinion, but I'm biased because I think it's pretty awesome.
I would say, so I think that like, sorry, I'm just a little too much going through my head, so I'm going to really simplify it. It's like, I agree that Korg's YouTube, social media, advertising, marketing sucks. Moog, or Moog, depending on how you want to pronounce it, do a beautiful job.
Moog is destroying it. Like Lisa Belladonna's
I think
demos.
Arturia
is so good.
Is killing it. I think Arturia is killing it. Like,
yeah.
And you can see these brands, and there's a whole bunch of others, not just that. But there's a whole bunch of others that like are really starting to figure out like exactly your point, which is could look cool, great knobs, great this, great that, whatever. But it's like, just hit me with the fucking sound, man. Like, what is this? Because that's what we're fucking doing this for, right? Like, give me the sound, hook me with the sound, something unique and different and interesting about this instrument or whatever you're building or whatever. What can you do with it sound wise? And then go through the little explanatory journey, etc.
Right. I want to see
BRB.
what BRB. All right. Yeah, I want to see what I like. What is this gonna do for me? Like, I want to be able to see myself, not necessarily in the video, but like see somebody making sounds that I could see myself making, like, and enjoying
Yeah.
making with my patches and things. And that's, I think the Micro Freak, even though it had lots of really good videos and demos, it took me a long time to want it because not a lot of the videos really fit sort of the feel of what I want.
Yeah.
And it definitely has that. Like, it's got beef. You can make it have some serious, like, oomph.
Yeah.
Or you can make it do, like, all sorts of crazy modular patches. But, like, the idea is, like, I wasn't sold on it until I saw a video that was like, oh, okay, like, that can do what I think it can. It'll fit my sound. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that thing. And Korg does not do that.
Yeah, but like Korg is like, I think I'm going to give it some credit in the following way, which is I think it's got its product line, in a bunch of areas in the musical area that they just got it nailed, right? And I appreciate them experimenting in these different areas, not getting it right every time, but occasionally coming out with a fucking hit, right? So the Korg mini log, like, in the last 7 or 8 years, is considered to be, like, for this age or this certain, like, that's a classic.
Yeah,
that's a classic.
That one's not going anywhere for a very long time.
Yeah. And so what I'm saying is, like, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just, like, pointing out they also get hits amongst them, some failures, and I think, but I appreciate they're, like, innovating and trying and enjoying what they're doing, which fucking I really appreciate that.
Sorry, my dog came to have some water. Yeah, I mean, I love some of the innovative stuff they've been doing, like the Volca, what do they call it, Modular or whatever that one is.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I just want to extend this to all Volcas. I don't think there's a bad Volca out there. I think there's maybe Volcas that don't vibe with some people's this type of music they want to make, like the Volca FM is a great example. Like, FM synthesizers tend to have sound like either really pleasant sort of bell-like tones, things like that, or like Angry Robot. That doesn't fit everybody, so some people hate on it. But I think every Volca, like, they do a really good job with their products. So that's why I'm stoked about the welcome back, the drum machine and the Modwave. Like, if they made the Modwave into a desktop module, like, without the keyboard, I would be very interested right now.
That would be so nice.
Yeah, I don't know who has space for a keyboard. Like, I have plenty of keyboards here. I don't want any more unless it's a full-size Micro Freak, in which case
like,
I would make an exception.
Especially if you have a keyboard. Like, who needs 10 keyboards?
Right.
As a person who is currently borrowing 2 full-sized keyboards, they are humongous.
Right. At this point, like, if it was inexpensive, or like 10 years down the road, if I got a Modwave for, like, I don't know, half the price or whatever, that would be something I would consider chopping the keyboard off, because, like, keyboards tend to be like one cable attachment and then you just got a hole in the front, so they're relatively easy to remove. But I'm not going to do that to a new synthesizer. Like, I don't know, not totally crazy, but like I do think they have good product. My point is that I think they have good products, terrible marketing, which is why I'm excited. I'm also sort of excited about the SQ64, even though it's not something that I need or would buy. I'm stoked it's there. I'm hoping that it does a lot of cool things in terms of performance, features.
Yeah.
But that, yeah.
I just while you mentioned that, like, that did get on my radar a little while ago when it initially launched, and that was, like, actually pretty recently. I think in the last 3 months or something like that.
Right.
I think this is, like, I think this looks like a great product. I am not looking for more sequences, but I can imagine that if I'm getting into modular or looking for a new sequencer option, I reckon this is a really decent product. Like I would give that credit for that. I would look at it definitely.
I need
Right.
to like see some more demos that aren't by Korg, but I wasn't totally convinced by that one. Like, I really, really like my SQ1, and it didn't feel like it logically
Yeah,
was the successor to it.
right.
But I don't know. I might be wrong.
Right.
And
Well,
sorry,
that's
what do you mean the SQ1? Sorry,
That's their little one.
right.
That,
that's the little it's like modular. It's not Eurorack though, but it has CV in and out, right?
yeah, I'll go get it.
Yes.
BRB.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. Their demo was lackluster, and they started to show some performance features. I can't remember exactly what, but it had to do with like shortening and lengthening a sequence on the fly, so I
Yeah.
could like make it half length, twice length, change
Yeah,
the
yeah.
speeds, things like that. So that's what I mean by performance features, where you could do something relatively quickly that completely changes the feel of the current
Have you
sequence.
do you know the talk there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen it. I haven't owned one of those Forestine. But like yes, I know the one you mean there.
It's really heavy. It would break your toe if you dropped it. Like, it is really, really skookum for some reason. Like, but it has very limited things that it does. But I don't know. I guess like maybe if they'd gone more performable, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's like that one. I don't. I guess that's my problem with sequencers right now. I have a beef with sequencers. Like, why? Let me unplug this thing.
I'm mad at sequencers pretty much all the time.
Why does this remote control have better performance sequencing stuff than any of these larger, more powerful sequencer, like Ableton, things like that, like that have no excuse. Like this, I can press a button and all of a sudden I get drum fills. I can press a button and things go through a filter. Like I can do all sorts of crazy stuff.
What is that again?
This is the OPZ.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like it's a completely kick butt sequencer, and the only reason I'm not using it as my main sequencer is I like to detach it and go do other things with it. Like it's a monster. I don't think I've ever streamed with it. But I like the sounds on it. They always sound like OPZ sounds, but whatever. But you can use it to sequence things up to 16 tracks, which is not enough for me. Which is why I have the Pyramid. Actually, I think I could do 16 now, but the Volca sample took up 10 MIDI tracks at one point before I put the unofficial firmware on there. So that's why I had the Anyway, these sequencers I have, like I can do some things. Like I can quickly change a few sequences at a time. Like I create scenes essentially and quickly change that, which is how I do drops and things like that. But I can't like easily do beat repeats across tracks or like do some other things. And it does have some features. Like there is like I can do a master track where I control the scale or key of the synths playing and things like that. And I just don't have a lot of luck with that kind of stuff compared to the OPZ. It just bugs me. Like there's not a lot going on there. Like they want you to type in all of the things, which is fine. But once they're in there, like that's your sequence.
Yeah, I don't like my background is like I like really usable interfaces. Like and
that's my
where
job.
I've been a lot of my career has been involved in like make stuff that works like obviously,
Right.
intuitively, and
Right. Don't make me
then if
think.
you want to get into like the deeper levels of depth of that particular thing, have at it, and want to do that for all layers. But like your first experience, like just it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like become immediately of like productive, and then you realize this thing's got this next layer and then this next layer, but like the journey through that is still really intuitive. That's I really appreciate design when it comes like that, including musical instruments.
I think it's key.
That is like,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I've been thinking about this a lot in that, like, because I know a lot of like neurodivergent people that are into synths, that it's like you're with modular, you're building this entire thing made for exactly the way that you learn things and exactly the way that makes sense to your brain. Like, that's really cool. Like, there's no other instrument that you can be like, I don't like it that way, I'm going to do it this other way. Which I think is like,
exactly.
yeah.
But I will say, like, I really appreciate when things make sense. Like, I think this is the best sequencer I own. It's just limited to only 3 tracks. It's the BeatStep Pro. And the reason I say that is because of what you said, Alex, where it's something that you don't need to read a manual to use. Like, you can very quickly do everything you need to do without opening a book. And then there's some deeper stuff, but there's also like some performable features. Like you can do either a loop mode where if I hit like this, it loops like a certain length of the current sequence.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Right.
So
all
like
right,
this
brother.
one,
Like,
this one's
listen, you
rad.
know, I love you. What I'm about to say to you, you know, I love you. Right before I say it.
You think it's crap?
No, I don't think it's crap. I don't think it's crap. Actually, I'm not. No, my point is that you have different levels of understanding of these types of instruments, and different levels of sophistication of people that are coming into the market. And I'll speak for myself. BeatStep Pro like was ahead of where I was in my understanding of like some core concepts of sequencing and track management and the rest of it. And so conceptually it's like, oh fuck, I know what a sequencer is, like, and I imagine it in my head about what that would be, and then you're confronted by a physical device, and then you're like, how do you transpose your thoughts? And so I think it takes learning the manual, like a product like that, to get to it. Like for me, that wasn't intuitive. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and I think it wasn't intuitive because of the level that I was at. I think now, now what I know about sequences, right?
I mean, I was with you.
In front of a BeatStep Pro for the first time, I probably would get it.
When I got it,
I had to go through a, yeah.
I didn't have any other sequencers. Like that was my first sequencer. And
you're smarter than I am.
Well, no, I figured out the very basics because like I'd watched a YouTube video before it arrived or something, right? Like I figured out the basics.
So did I, but I couldn't figure it out.
But I think once you learn like like you learn one sequencer and they're pretty much all the same with caveats on like how to zoom in or whatever the thing is. But I just have so many problems with sequencers. Go ahead. Yeah.
You know who has really terrible manuals is Korg.
Korg
like
has the worst.
The one for the SQ1 was just this big piece of paper, and like, oh my god, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I had to find a video. Like, what did people do before videos? Yeah. Why is it like that?
You know what this is for?
Good luck ever folding it back up properly.
This is why the internet was invented. This is why the internet was invented. We would see manuals like this, and we would go like, wait, and this is like for me to put together a table for my kitchen. It's like this is insane.
Like it's almost to scale. Like what are you doing?
So that's why like people invented the internet, because like how do I like decipher this IKEA instruction set that is going to make sense for me? I don't even have a hammer.
And then because the file is for that big printout, if you go to like their website and try to get the manual, it's a PDF that's that big.
It is. I've done that so many times with like I think the mini log and the sample a million times, and like if I want to go to a PDF, I expect something shaped like a human piece of paper.
Yeah,
not
it's
like
Colt says,
goddamn
"Oh,
map.
you need this bigger? Great. You can print this out as a whole room. It's exactly the same manual printed out in a completely unusable way."
It's the worst. Meanwhile, you've got the Teenage Engineering Manual, which is this funny thing, which gives you the basics, and then everything else you look at on a website that has
The
things.
cardboard that you're
on a
going to throw
website.
away.
Well, I keep them because I'm a
Yeah.
nerd.
Cool.
My
I'm
partner just
gonna
said.
do my BRB. It's my BRB moment.
Okay.
All right.
I'll BRB.
My partner just said, I love the manuals for the old synths we borrowed that have the circuit block diagrams and bombs included.
Yeah, Korg has great schematics. Like I've looked at the old Korg like MS-10 manual, obviously because I've had to fix the MS-10 manual, but like their repair manuals or service manuals are so good. You get the
We ended
full
up finding-
schematics. And,
We
yeah.
ended up finding service manuals for both the synths we borrowed, which was crazy. We borrowed a Yamaha SY22, which is vector synthesis thing.
Vector synthesis machine that does some crazy stuff. Yeah.
It does pads and stuff, and it's got a joystick. And it has no filter.
It has no filter, which is my least favorite few words. But you know what? On the Bit Ranger, it has no filter, and I still love it.
Yeah. And then the other one is an Alpha Juno 2. And we had to take that one apart because it had a couple dead keys. The Alpha knob only turns stuff down, which is the only way to control it. And the stereo out didn't work.
Just to clarify, it's the Alpha Juno. I definitely heard the Al Pacino too, and I was like, wow, that's a
That would be cool.
very specific synthesizer.
Yeah. And now it works, but we're going to have to order some of the rubber domes that go under the keys because they're like totally disintegrating.
That's the next thing I want to complain about. Anything that's not a mechanical switch, like I get it for cost saving things, like when you got this little buddy here, it's everything's mechanical with the exception of, well, I guess even this is probably just a I don't know, potentiometer or touch strip or something. But if this fails, who cares? Because no one's going to use this very much compared to the MIDI input. Like, this is a perfect little device. It's going to last a very long time. The main sequencer I have, this pyramid, like if I change this camera angle real quick to the camera that maybe is not on.
It's totally not on.
Well,
Uh-oh, the cat's making goblin noises behind me. Tim says print everything. I actually I waste a lot of paper printing manuals. I printed the Psy-22 manual, which was like this big. And it has like this huge table of every single patch that's in it. So there's like 64 patches. And then each patch is made out of like 2 samples and 2 FM synth sounds. And then that's how the vector works, and then you joystick between them.
oh, cool. That's very
But
very
the
cool.
manual is a chart of every single one.
Oh,
It's a lot of paper.
that's not cool.
I haven't figured out how to program any patches into it yet. But I found an open source MIDI editor that should work. Apparently you can't access any of the FM synth stuff unless you use an editor.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've very little FM synth experience outside of like some things here and there that emulate it, but from what I've seen, like the Volca FM and these other things, constantly there's patch software. So like the Volca FM is pretty cool because I think it uses like, is it the DX7? Like there's some famous maybe the DX7 that has a lot of FM synth patches all in the software that you need to configure on the software, and it can pull in all those patches into the FM. So like I've seen those editors around. Like I have no interest in any of that on a computer. Like I toyed with that with the circuit, and it's okay, but I don't love it.
Yeah, it's got like a pretty big, not pretty, I think it can hold 64 more user created things. It had a cartridge that had a battery in it that you can't get anymore, and is like $100 on eBay.
To like an expansion cartridge.
Yeah. So I thought maybe we could like make some patches and just put them on there and then be done with it.
Old synths are so weird.
Yeah.
There's that's very specific era of synths, actually, not just old synths. It's like that era where they decided weird expansion cards and expansion PCBs were the thing to do.
Yeah, well, like, so the Juno, like, was the Juno that came after the famous Juno, and they got rid of all of the knobs and sliders because they're mean, and then you had to buy, like, a programming box with all the sliders on it.
You have to- yeah, no, I've seen it. It's that extra additional thing that sits on top, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so otherwise you have to, like, press the buttons and use this dial to put in stuff, which I don't actually mind. It's like a giant Pamela's New Workout. And, like...
It's cool that you have it. That's...
I love it, and I don't want to give it back. Hopefully the guy forgets that he lent them to us.
Oops. Yeah, I know, like, I can empathize with that. I've never had anything lent to me yet because I don't live near anybody, and also I haven't been doing this that long. All right, let's see if this works. 'Cause I would love if things just worked. Ah, cool.
Ah!
All right, I don't remember what I was going to show, but
You were going to show
pads.
up a pyramid so you could complain about it.
Yeah, all of these membrane pads, this type and the ones on the circuit, those type of things, they're the worst because if dust gets in there, they end up triggering things. And I also hate this touchpad for similar reasons. Like, these are the components that are going to wear out, but they're like the most used things. Like, I'd much prefer like mechanical keyboard keys or something that at the very least you could replace if they wear out, right? Like, it's a piece of metal touching another metal. Like these are kind of a pain to clean. Or like even the Micro Freak with these keys, these are really nice. Like, these aren't going to wear, like, well, I have seen some instances where people have, like, I don't know if they have acid fingers or what, but they've actually worn off the traces.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen any wear and tear, and I use the crap out of it. So
Can you feel the keys on that thing? Like, can you feel the difference between the keys? Or do you have to be looking at it all the time?
I am a bad keyboard player, so I have to be looking at it all the time, but you can feel the difference in the keys because there's actually these black lines are a slightly raised round beveled ridge. So, like, you can still slide it. It interrupts slides. Like, it's not going to slide something smooth like this will, but you can still do slides. And the black keys are actually a second circuit board raised above. So, like, you can definitely feel the difference between the black keys and the white keys.
Oh, cool.
And, like, sliding between the black keys and the white keys is a bit rough, but I think that's rough on a normal piano, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about the Volca keys is I just end up, like, feeling like my fingers are yams.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and that's another example. Like, I don't actually love the Volca's... let me switch that camera again. The Volca's, like, keyboard, I guess. This one, I think, is also a membrane of some sort, and this is definitely going to be the first thing on here to go. Everything else is... now these are membranes too. Maybe. Yeah, I think these ones are. These will be the first things to go on it. But besides the whole unit, which I'm probably going to sell at some point, which is why it's unplugged and in a corner. Alex
Did you
is
hear
back.
about the drum? What was it called? The drum log or something?
Yeah, that was the drum log I was talking about earlier with Korg. Like, it's the drum log with the really bad sound demo. Like, I'd be happy to show it off if you want to watch some terrible YouTube.
I know. I did see it. I agree. It's
Like-
shit.
like-
But man, you know, if, like, they got some decent sound designers and got some decent patches and demos and stuff like that, that could be, like, pretty awesome. It just
Totally.
felt like a little. It was like a little half baked. Like, the product teams, like, getting, you know, pushed to, like, hey, you know, we need the next lineup. Where the fuck are you? And the marketing bridge was shit.
Well, this I wasn't sure on this one. I think Korg usually releases it after it's done. But this one, I think because it's relatively new, like I don't think they've done anything quite like this in terms of drums to this scale that I'm aware of. I think they're actually interested in user feedback. So one of the ways to do that is to tease a video like this, still in production and that kind of thing, no promises, but like they can see in the comments really quickly like, oh, 90% of people actually are super interested in samples being a big deal, so let's make samples a bigger deal, add a little more memory, that kind of thing. So I suspect there was some of that, but I'm just gonna hit play on the video so we can, well, let me switch this to OBS virtual camera, which will be sort of funny. But like this is, like listen to that.
Why is my face there again?
コルグの山田です。
Like that's the drum loop the whole time. Like it doesn't. Like is that really the thing we need to? Anyway.
No, nobody gives a fuck about drum loops that don't inspire anybody. I mean, that's just
Like that was a weak like.
ridiculous.
That was a terrible like that was a. Like it's okay if it's a CR76 Korg drum machine from whenever it was released. Fine, I expect that sounds out of that. But for a brand new drum machine, I expect like drum, you know, like
Yeah, but you know those Volcas, for example. I haven't owned one of them, but I think isn't one of them like at least percussion based.
two of them are. There's the Volca kick and the Volca drum, and I think the Volca drum
Right.
is newer, and both of them hit. Like they're good drum machines.
Yeah, and if I remember rightly, like they sound great when you see their promo videos on their channel. Like they knew how to like introduce a new instrument, and they just didn't with this product, at least the drum one. The thing that caught my attention was this. You know, it's like you don't know how much of it is like fish, you know, fucking hand waving and the rest of it, but the Korg VR
That
thing
one.
that they teased, that's like, I'm wondering, like, is that where their talent's going right now?
I think they're investing. I think Korg is making a lot of smart moves and investing a lot in software and trying new things. Like the Korg gadget is probably one of my most recommend. Like I would recommend that app over other music apps, and I've tried a lot of music apps. Like it's very good on both computer, iPads, whatever. And there is some syncing between it. I don't love the computer one because it's sort of versioned, but as far as the interface goes, it's an all-in-one DAW with a huge range of sounds from all sorts of cool things. And they're doing things with it that you can't do, like you can do with VSTs and things like that, but you couldn't do like with hardware as easily. So the VR seems like an awesome workflow for it. But again, the demo is crap. Like
Yeah.
extremely low
They
frame
can't
rate.
even make VR look exciting. Like
Here, let's watch
VR
it.
is
I have it
usually
queued up.
fun. Okay.
Let me switch back over to this, and then let's go to Zoom, and let's switch back to the OBS video. And I need to make some macros or something. All right. Let's make this theater and enjoy the bad frame rate. So you've got a really good frame rate here.
Really?
All right, I'm going to stop it there because I think maybe the bad frame rate has to do with the video capture they use for it, or at least I'm hoping so. But again, bad demo.
Well, like I'm gonna say this, right? I have Oculus. I've experienced VR titles. I dabble with it just to see what the state of the art is and what's going on. And there's a product that like I ran into maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, called Tribe XR. I joined their Discord early on, and it's basically a virtual DJing platform on Oculus. And it's like it. This reminds me of what that was 3 years ago. But the speed that Tribe XR accelerated once they had a lot of the interfaces and some of it, then like everything started moving real fast. So I understand what you're saying. Like that video in itself is like, oh shit, like that looks like VRML from the early World Wide Web in '95. Almost like resolution speaking and all the rest of it. But like, I think it's really an interesting avenue for where things like VCV is, right? So if you could imagine being able to really successfully create a three-dimensional version of what VCV rack is in that environment, I totally get like, oh, people actually want to feel knobs, but it doesn't stop from MIDI controllers being put together that you actually interface, but then you're visually and auditory, you're in VR space, and you can have like still physical interaction.
I don't even think that the knobs matter. It's like speed of getting to a control. Like one of the problems with, I guess, any software for me is, especially with VCV Rack, is like, let's say I want to control two knobs at once, right? Like I have two hands, I should be able to do that, but it's already slow enough for me to go and like click on the knob and drag it a direction. Hopefully not click any wires or any of the wrong things, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of potential for failure. So I think something like VR can work even without necessarily the knob feel, right? Like you have a lot more space. You can intentionally reach over with the controller, grab something, move something, that kind of thing.
You can still completely keep with the mouse and the keyboard, like
that's true,
as an interface. Like if that's your preferred modality and that's VCV Rack for you, then that's like just good to go out of the box. That's a no-brainer. It's like, for me, it's like, where's the interface between then getting off that interface and then getting into a more three-dimensional spatial interface, given that you don't actually have all the knobs in front of you. Like it's a bridge, but it's not the end result, of course.
Another beef I have is, go ahead, sorry.
With stuff like VCV, like people always recommend it to beginners, and it's like, okay, this is a smart idea to save money or figure out if you really like this. But as soon as I look at it on a screen, I don't understand it anymore. Like, it's like I could even look at a module I have in person and be like, whoa. And like, as soon as I have to click on a knob, it's just all over. Like, I don't want to do it anymore.
I think there's a high... there's a learning curve.
Also, VR doesn't appeal to me, so I don't know. Like, I'm just not the person this product is for.
I'm pseudo with you, except I did try the Oculus. Like I've tried it a few times, and I have fun every time. I just hate Facebook, so that's probably like my biggest problem is that Facebook owns it now, and it's clearly the best piece of hardware out there for VR. But circling back to Core Gadget in VR. I do think they did a bad job designing it. Like I think they designed it like they do a lot of VSTs are designed right now, where they've designed it to look like very skeuomorphic, to look like instruments and to interact like instruments, which is fine. I tend to prefer more of the Ableton approach, where it's like the same UI across everything, so it's really easy to quickly scan and see where things are.
This is the challenge that they've got though, right? Which is a uniform graphic and visual language,
right?
Like iPhone and iMac and iPad, rather, like Core just had this stable of apps that are really instruments that could the only unifying factor was the Apple interface on the audio routing, right?
Right.
The rest of it was like the visual UI between these different apps by the same company were wildly apart. I mean, that's part of one of the reasons they succeeded, because it allows them room. Now they're confronted, like many companies, like, okay, how do you unify the interface on a whole offering that makes everything amazing when you really put it together? So
Netflix.
that's
You look at Netflix, they have something like 1,000 different apps, like different, not the same clone. Like they're literally different designs, but depending on the system. But I guess my point is they've designed something to be familiar, but like who's going to have the Core Gadget iPad and the Core Gadget VR and the Core Gadget Mac and like expect to interoperate? Like you can do it, I think. But like it's not designed for VR. Like it doesn't look designed for VR at all.
Yeah. That's like with iPad stuff. I prefer apps that are designed for a touch interface.
Yes.
Like Spacecraft, I really, really like, where it's just like, we're not going to try to make this like another thing that it is not. And then we're going to actually optimize it for the interface you're using.
Right, and I think there can be a balance. Like I think on the iPad is a great example is the Animoog. It's Moog's one of their first ventures into it, which is sort of it feels like an analog synthesizer, but you get sort of touch controls that feel very intuitive in terms of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you get a little bit of both worlds, but then there's others that are clearly designed for the iPad that are just the best to use.
Yeah, they're so much nicer to use. And then the other thing is, I just had this conversation with my friend about how like everywhere else got rid of skeuomorphic designs like 5 years ago, more than that. And then like VSTs still look like the Winamp skin I had in 1999.
VSTs. And I'm on the latest version of Mac, and one of the things that made me laugh and just like sort of hit home, or like I guess was a good VST story, is that when Mac gave the developers of VST 5 years, they're like, we're dropping 32-bit support in 5 years. That's the hard deadline. And then they did it, and like, I don't know, I want to say like 70% of VSTs died on that day if you upgraded your computer. Like they're designing like they're in the early 2000s still, or late 90s in some instances. Yes.
A lot of those VSTs are on life support,
Yeah, I know. Like they're
there
basically
was an
just
original
using-
development. Some of them moved on. It's a side project. Some of them it's like their entire living, but it's one person behind it.
Yep.
It's an interesting ecosystem. It's like a cottage industry of these developers of these VSTs. A lot of them just are not.
Well, that's sort of the thing, though. Like it puts you in a position. I don't trust anything on my computer. Like if I'm going to make something on my computer, I'm going to release it, and that's going to be the end of it. I'm not going to expect that VST to be there forever. And I feel the same way about apps. Like it's software, it's ephemeral. Anything you make on a computer is ephemeral, whether you like it or not. There are some things that will be archived forever, but this synthesizer is older than me and it still kicks, right? Like it's a piece of hardware, it's never going to break. Like you replace the components, it'll work, right? Like it's not going to break if I update my computer.
Did we get disconnected?
I did briefly, yes.
Okay.
We're good again.
It just kind of froze for about 15 seconds or something.
Okay, because I just got the Streambot notification.
Right, and I would say video games are another example of that, where like PCs are awesome. They're clearly the like best type of video games you can do, or some of the best. But you've got to constantly upgrade the system. Old game support gets questionable down the road, that kind of stuff. Whereas if you've got an Xbox 360 or a Nintendo Wii or an NES, like they're going to run those games. They're always going to run those games until the system itself fails. Like it makes me really hesitant to want to spend a lot of money on music software.
Let me just say, I think unfortunately I just have accepted that there is this bonkers situation, the relationship between humans and software, and the update cycles of software and the mismatch between humans just having a tolerance for like stuff just breaking underneath them the moment that they upgrade to the next great thing. It's like,
It's always when you need to do something. That's when it fails. I mean, I've developed a lot of software. I understand, I empathize, but like the reality is it is ephemeral. Like, yes, you can spend money on computer software, but then you're in a position where if you're a professional musician, do you keep your computer at that operating system level?
I wouldn't fuck with it.
Right,
Like,
and then you just get another
it's like,
computer the next time you want to like upgrade your stuff.
yeah, you just gotta, yeah. I mean,
Which is
man,
yeah,
it's
questionable.
scary. Like the idea of upgrading. All right, for me, it is
Yeah, we
getting
gotta.
close to my witching hour,
All right.
and so I'm
Are
going
you
to,
gonna turn into a pumpkin?
yes, but just that's just going to like rid me of orangeness.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hit the music again and see you all next week.
All right.
Oh yeah,
Good night.
happy New President Day.
Absolutely. Let's
Yeah,
move.
congratulations, Americans.
Unify.
All right, we've got that.
Unify. Unite.
All right, where was that? This is the track I started just a little while ago.
This is one that you're really into right now.
I'm super into it.
Yeah. Is there like something about it that's like going better than you thought or something? Like,
I don't know. It's probably because I've been drinking.
yeah.
Anyway, have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.